Thank you very much, Francine, for the information. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Business Central webinar. Today, yes, we're going to check Cortana and this via business intelligence, artificial intelligence for inventory and sales. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for coming, everybody. Now, today I'm going to start with our PowerPoint presentation just to mention what is Cortana, how then it works, and I'm going to show it today. I'm going to go directly to Business Central just to see how exactly it looks when we connect this Azure service. So you already know that Cortana is actually sort of artificial intelligence. So let's just explore a little bit about the functionality applied to Business Central today. So we have a forecast that is going to analyze our item history for a company. And this is what we call an extension. And what it does is predicts potential sales by using historical data and gives a clear overview of expected stockouts. And this model explains how this extension works and how it is set up. Because what we want is not actual technical part, but functional, and just review what we have behind the scene in order to actually connect it and make it functional for you. So this is how then we end up here at Optimus. We just sort of not only present Business Central, but this is top of our technology, and so it might be appealing for any of you who want just to see it, how do we get to the actual connection and to get the results for the forecasts. Now, we're going to check how is the setup. We're going to use it today for forecasting sales and then for forecasting our inventory processes. Okay, so the sales and inventory forecast extension uses Cortana intelligence to analyze, well, the historical data to predict, well, the future demand, that's a forecast, so that you can base procurement decisions on accurate and reliable forecasts, which is not often a service provided easily, right? So using this extension can help your company avoid lost revenue, optimize shipping costs, discover trends, and boost your brand reputation by always delivering orders. So the sales and inventory forecast extension then predict potential sale by using the historical data and gives a clear overview of expected stockouts, like we mentioned. So when we know we won't be able to sell, it's not only about predicting inventory that we're going to need, but also the sales. Well, based on this, we are going to have the possibility to create replenishment requests to your vendors and ultimately save you time. So let's just go there. First of all, to determine if a forecast has already been set up in your tenant, well, in Business Central, let's say, we're going to check the item list. I'm going to show this, everything that I'm going to explain in the demo, right? So just to mention it, because I don't know if you currently within your Business Central, if you open it and see this message, this means that, well, we might need to connect it. Okay, so the first thing is actually just reviewing if you have it or not available. Now, this is the sales and inventory forecast. This is a window. Here we have plenty of different setups because they are related to statistical analysis and some connections to Azure. So the idea here, for instance, is that everything is connected to Azure. In Azure, we have plenty of different forecasting services. We're going to check today, once again, sales and inventory. We want to help our replenishing process. And for that, we might think of how Cortana experiments or the galleries for the different forecasting. Artificial intelligence actually works for us, trying to review all what we have sold, what we have purchased, what the inventory that we currently have, historical information. Is going to depict everything in a graphical way so you can see it, how then it is predicting And you need to configure, this is what I'm going to explain in a moment. Maybe you need to have, maybe you only have 6 months of history. Maybe you require a little bit more, or maybe it's just a matter of months or weeks. So we need to actually configure first our model, and we have different statistical or mathematical models that are available, or all of them at the same time, to give you the correct forecast. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. A forecast is a graphical representation that could be represented by month or by different or by week, on a weekly basis, let's say, where you can see this, for instance, this chart. Okay, this will be directly depicted while you are purchasing. It's going to show you this information. Okay, so maybe you input an item, and then or even in the item card you want to see this, just to have an idea of the how then it would look. For instance, the bar chart is currently an inventory representation, where I will be taking a look at how many units I expect to be used, the sales forecast, how many units I expect to sold on a weekly basis. And I have options to create from the analysis, to create a brand new purchase order for me automatically with the units that I will need according to the analysis that artificial intelligence did for me. And it's going to create a document with the items you need or expected to be needed. And then as well, we have the possibility as well of editing that document that Cortana can create for us. It doesn't mean that Cortana is going to start replenishing our company. Of course not. It's, let's say, a brand new assistant with information that, let's say, a mathematician would do if you require to analyze historical information, which is often what you normally do with a replenishing process, but as well, never forget based on your experience. Otherwise, well, it wouldn't be accurate most of the time, due to the fact that you need to introduce new type of items, fashionable items, seasons, and then you have stores sometimes where you need to say, okay, I have different sizes of stores that sell different items, just as an example, right? Well, for that, we would need to centralize all the demand according to the different places where you sell, or channels or websites, okay? What Cortana does instead is just review the information that is going to be really accurate, but at the moment when we purchase, just to use it as an assistant, I was mentioning. So you could actually run your replenishing or according to your experience, and you see how sometimes Cortana is going to give you exactly the same information that you wanted to purchase, all right? But based off historical information, this means that Cortana reviews if you have trends, whether you have it or not. Well, it depends on your process, marketing, and many other variables. But if we detect a trend sales operation for more than 6 months, certainly Cortana, and this could be configurable, certainly Cortana is going to tell you, hey, I have a trend that you might have not even detected before. And that's really useful. So it's going to give you insights about, okay, according to the regular sales analysis I'm going to present with this type of windows, well, the important thing, first of all, for any type of replenishing or sales analysis is to detect those trends. That might be sometimes even a little confusing to understand, to the fact that actually, if you take a look at your sales in a historical information, or even in a graphical way, they are unpredictable almost, or you cannot always see let's think of a trading chart, stocks that are always changing, varying, and all that, right? That's forecasting. Those people are always forecasting what will be the future in order to make investments, but you're doing exactly the same with the difference that you, even though you might not have control on the sales in the future, right? Due to the different facts, well, you at least can certainly detect those trends that are applicable for those items that will be important to consider, maybe those items that you sell the most, and use the trend in order to have a second opinion, even though you might have an analysis, but Cortana is going to give us exactly that, and we're going to see it working. So we have different variables. Now, what it checks to make predictions about future sales, this is a web service that is going to, from Azure, have access to what we call the item ledger entries. Here is just a table, a SQL, a repository table where we just save our information. And here, this is what exactly Cortana checks. According to the period that we set up, the periodicity, let's say for a week, do analysis for every month, all right? And you could have then a benchmark for the future purchase and sales that you think you might have, okay? But this is what then Cortana actually checks, okay? The item ledger entries, basically. And then before using the Cortana in Microsoft Business Central, we are going to compress transaction, but for what we call the posting date. Every time we sell, we purchase, we do, everything has a specific register in our database with one date. So we analyze which period we are going to use. So in Business Central, the connection to Azure AI is already set up. We consultants do it for you. However, you can configure the forecast. We need to give you training to use different type of analysis for periods to report by, such as changing from forecast by month to forecasting by quarter. And you can also choose the number of periods to calculate the forecast by, depending on how granular you want the forecast to be. Recommend that you forecast by month with a 12-month horizon for the forecast. And I know that you might not have this entire historical information, or maybe, for instance, in many countries like in the USA, you're with the weather, everything changes all the time. At least you might have two. In my experience, we in the USA, they have at least 2 times where you purchase and you almost change all your inventory from. So we don't expect to have 1 year of horizon, but I'm going to show you that we can change it at least to be maybe on a 2 to 3 weeks analysis. But remember, that's why we need to have some experience, right? Because of this type of logical criteria, like in the USA, well, they have changes in the weather all the time. Now, for us in Latin America, that's not the case, of course, and that's why I always suggest that for those important items that you sell the most, well, we strongly recommend to go for the 1 year horizon for the forecast to review your past trends, okay, for the last year, in other words. And here in Latin America, that's of course a possibility that we might only have different type of inventory winter, but that would be maybe one of only changes we might need. Okay, so now consider the period length that the service will use in its calculations. The more data you provide, the more accurate the predictions will be. So well, that's basically the idea. So we'll have one specific variable that we call variances in periods, which also impact prediction. If Azure AI doesn't find enough trend or enough data, or the data varies significantly, the service will make a prediction. Okay, I'm going to show you that. That's a statistical model. It's quite mathematical, but the variance, at least I'm going to show you how it actually works to actually work with it. Now, we have some parameters that you need to know. Horizon specifies the number of future periods to make predictions for. Okay, so we're gonna say that we can tell Cortana, I just want a prediction for the next week. No, we want a prediction at least for 4 to 6 periods in the future, so you can check that there is actually a trend. Okay, So the horizon is just to follow up the statistical model, and mathematicians, what they normally do is try to detect whether in the future, and specifically for the purchasing process, we never analyze and we purchase just for the following week. We need to understand at least 1 or 2 months in the future to detect that what we purchase certainly will be sold. Okay. Now, seasonality numeric. The model accepts any type of time period. But if you want it to recognize seasonality, you need to define what a normal season is for the historical data. For example, if the season is a year and the values are grouped monthly, then the seasonality should be 12. If the season contains quarterly values, the seasonality should be 4. However, if seasonality in your business is weekly, use 7 and aggregate values daily. So seasonality is going to help us to say and to detect how we want to use it. For me, in order to explain seasonality, I always prefer to use on a weekly basis for my purchasers, okay? So they are constantly reviewing new items, the shelves or the warehouse to detect that we, at least the most important items, we always have them. Let's think of a supermarket. We need dairy, meat, fruits, and veggies. Yes or yes? So let's define the seasonality based on food. Well, I cannot expect to purchase on a monthly basis, all right? My items have an expiration date, so I would use weeks as an example. But let's think of electronics. Let's think of what else? Personal health care, right? Those items, well, you might think of you just can purchase them, they just can stay there in the shelves, so don't worry about them. You could use maybe a month, all right? So you could purchase on a monthly basis only to get better cost price and just have negotiations with the vendor. So the seasonality for those items will be on a monthly basis. Well, it just depends if you have enough capacity on your warehouse to accept a monthly purchase. Well, for those items, well, just go ahead. But we expect to have that at least in our business central companies, mid-sized companies, yes, of course. Now, forecast start date key numeric. Specifies a delay before forecasting starts. Here's an example. Today is January 1st, and your data is for the past year, which is 12 periods. You can enter 2 as the horizon and 15 for the forecast data key. Date key, excuse me. In this case, you skip 2 months and get predictions for March and April. You can achieve the same result by specifying 4 as a horizon, skip the first 2 periods when processing the response. In this case, specify forecast start date key as the last value of the date key field and increment it by 1. For example, if you provide 12 months of historical data and the last date key is 12, the forecast start date key will be 13. Okay. Well, this is just a value that we expect to have because at the end, when we just make any type of forecasting process, well, we just expect not to use immediately sometimes this information, but we have a specific threshold because we might have already covered some purchases for at least the first period in the future. All right. So sometimes what we are expecting is to make some purchases, but not for immediate requirements, because we are supposed, at least in my experience, that we should always be covered for the following 2 months regarding inventory processes. So we have also this threshold date key to, well, we understand that we might be covered for these future 2 months. So let's just start making predictions on the other future periods. So with that, I will be making my analysis with this specific variable. Okay. Now, this is related to replenishment users, okay, where we just give you these ideas because we know that you sometimes look for this forecast. You need to learn, you need to have an insight, okay? That's why I'm explaining all of this. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'm just showing what we call the statistical models. Statistical models are just based on econometrics, let's put it that way, analysis where we define historical models behind ARIMA, ETS, STL, right? We expect to have this type of analysis which comes, like I mentioned, from econometric model. With let's think of economics, right? You have offer, you have demand, or in other words, purchase and sales, but as well, you need to define some periodicity. Everything that we are mentioning will be automated. So you don't need to focus on these mathematicians magic, right? We just select the model we want to use, or we can use all of them. But if you want it, and if you know how to then model a specific historical information and model it, I mean, with equations, mathematical insights that you have, if you have. Well, otherwise, then that's why Azure is using all of these are the most important mathematical models, let's call it that way. ARIMA, ETS, and STL are one of them, the three most important statistical models to make predictions, okay? And we as well can combine them. Just to mention it, you can Google it, you can check this information if you have an economical background, econometrics, what else, modeling, mathematical model, portfolio analysis. Well, you certainly know all of this in advance. Well, this is going to now work. The confidence level is just once again a statistical variable coming from ARIMA and any other prediction, where we can say that we expect to have, if a trend, well, this is a mathematical model, if a trend is actually really we are confident that something is going to happen to the variability of the model in different periods is not changing too much, let's call it that way. If it's not going up and down, up and down, up and down, well, we are going to measure with with specific equations to measure the confidence. If it's not changing too much, we are going to make a prediction. So let's say that you start selling a new item. We don't expect to have sometimes all the items to be sold immediately, but some of them will have the following behavior. It's going to start increasing the sales period by period. Well, that's exactly what we want, okay? If we detect that we have a trend where we expect to have specific growth, that's exactly what we are looking for. The confidence level should be above 85. Don't worry about exactly what means if it's below 70 or 60. We are just giving you those items where we really detect good trends, let's call it that way, and we are going to show you that information in Business Central. So we are here, let's say, not playing with these models, with your statistical analysis that you're gonna get. When you have it, when you receive it from Cortana, is because we expect that the confidence level means that the variations, even though we could do analysis for any type of data, when it has a variance coming from econometrics, what you call those of you who comes from economics, what you call variance in your statistical models, well, here we just call it confidence. Due to the fact that we are, of course, marketing this type of analysis, right? So confidence is a better term for the user to understand well that we do not always make predictions for all the items. This is not magic. This is anything related to that. These are just algorithms related to a statistical or mathematical econometric model like ARIMA, reviewing your historical information. And we do not always deliver our result unless we know that it has a good confidence level. So basically, that's the idea, okay? So now I'm going to give you this idea. Azure AI, after explaining these theoretical ideas, don't worry about them for now. it's not that you're gonna get into any Excel features, right? Making graphics equations. Don't worry about it. That's not the way we're gonna work. That's why we're gonna make a model right now. So we work with a Azure. We have in Azure what we call the AI gallery. Okay, a different type of experiments we have in there to measure, let's say, the cash flow, our inventory, our sales, right? We are going to connect to Azure through what we call in the technical, we technical people or consultants or administrators, in order to connect to our service, we provide the API and the URLs, okay? So you have a key for access and you have a URL to connect to Azure as well, and in order to add your data collection and then use that in order to present to the users an output. So let's go now and jump to the actual demo. Look at this. Here I have Business Central, and I told you that this was not going to be really difficult. And I just wanted to explain the previous information. And what I will be doing is just showing, look at this Paris guest chart. Okay, let's just jump into the action. Let's forget about the theory. Okay, I have this Paris guest chair. I have this beautiful chart that is telling me, apparently I couldn't have 1,220 units. I like it, but what is this telling me? For me, what I want to really know about this information is that everything will be working fine for my predictions. The purchases is currently, by the way, I'm working on, where I went, okay, April 12th. Sorry to have this date, is not the current date because I have my license that where I could use Azure only for specific dates. Otherwise, I might not have results, okay? This is coming from my actual demos that I have some licenses. Look at this. I have April 12th, April 20th, April 27th, and so on. Then if you take a look at this, these are just weeks. Sorry, do we have comments? Okay, weeks. And for the inventory, I have apparently for the first week, in order to forecast, I have 1,220. Then apparently it decreases only 20 units, 1,100. 980, yes. My inventory is expected to be decreased, right? According the current result, is going to be decreasing for 20 units on a weekly basis, okay? So that's the model. It's not exact, that never will be just exact, but how do we use this model? Well, this has been forecasted for us, and as well, let me just show you the in sales forecast. All right. The sales forecast is because I'm always expect to be selling 120 units. Look at this. Okay. This is really funny sometimes to have like for 1 or 2 months the same type of sales. But this is what Cortana detected for us. Of course, this is the demo. This could be 120, 100, and then 200, but more or less the same. We are detecting like a bandwidth, okay, or like a threshold, or like a trend. And this was very, let me just see what is the information behind this item. We have the guest Paris chair, and I want to see now the sales. I have currently this quantity on hand, and I have apparently this unit cost, and I want to see why Cortana detected that the sales are so stable. By the way, you can, and we have, of course, our historical information, okay? The sales, okay? So what I want to just check is that my entries, let me just expand this a little bit, or maybe with another, very good. I have just minimized a little so we can see more operations. Look at this. Let me just check it. Apparently, I have plenty of historical information, but from what I see, I have been selling 120 units, sometimes only 5. Look at this. It's not really constant. 120, 120. Look at the sales, okay? All those that have sales, well, apparently, in 2021 year, let me explain you this. Since January, I'm going to focus on this 6 month. Cortana did this for me, just to mention it. I put Cortana to work at night. And I'm going to explain because I started to model my items only for the current year, only 2021, because I need to understand that, well, if the coronavirus, I would never include information from the last year. Simple as. Now, for what I see, I have been selling from 120 up to 150 in the beginning of or in the last year. I was selling in December 24, only one day I have sold 150, okay? And then for some reason, yes, it was quite constant. My sales were, excuse me, I was selling a few units, and then look at this. I purchased 2,000, okay? And then I started selling this. If I just try to take a look at how many units I will need by just checking this, I would never detect a trend. I have been selling -5, -6, even -100. Okay, this is a good value. -100 in March. And apparently, from what I see here, February, look at these dates, were very weak. I only sold 6 units. God damn. This is not good. Then in March, for some reason, maybe somebody did a promotion or something like that, I started selling 100 units, 100, and then it increased in March. Well, at the end of March, I sold 120, okay? And apparently every week, I have been selling more than 100 units, okay? So that's the case, that's what we have. But taking a look at this for me is really difficult to actually know, hey, do I need to purchase this or I really don't, okay? I just wanted to show you then how it looks. And every item that you have, you can expect to see exactly the same. Yes, you might have some trends, but you cannot just detect it just by looking at the figures visually. You need to make statistical models, yes or yes. Now, that's how then we know that my inventory is going to start decreasing, okay? But in a rate that apparently, because I still have 1,220, and I have been selling on a weekly basis, more or less from what I saw, 100 units, what I will expect is not to start purchasing at this moment exactly, okay? Because I see this analysis, and if I just take a look at this, by the end of May, this is April, remember, I'm in April, right? So in 2 months, I still expect to have the half 620 units, half of the inventory that I currently have. Okay, more or less. Remember that this is not exactly you, so the figures that are quite random. Now, I have 1,200 units, and in 2 months, I expect to have half of that inventory. Simple as. That's the first analysis that you are expecting to have. And we are going to train you exactly in order to use this thing. From here, I could create a purchase order for this item. Let's just do it now. This is what normally a purchaser should be doing, okay? But look at this. The purchase order actually was for the actual vendor from where we purchased normally this item. So Cortana knows that, reviewed the historical information, and created the actual, with one click, the purchase order. It's actually as well included with the item. But look at this, the location and the quantity are currently 0. 0. Use the assistant, use your assistant always. What is this doing? Well, it's just telling me, no, you don't need inventory for that. Simple as. But if you need it, because you saw that the sales were constant, let me just show them again. And this is very, very good because you don't not only just see them in your item, but while you are purchasing, okay? And why Cortana is not giving me items to purchase? Because it already understands that since the introduction of this item in the beginning of the year where I just sold 6 units only, for some reason, maybe I prepare for offers, discounts, or a promotion, or anything. But since March, I have been more or less selling 100 units, 100, well, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but Cortana make an analysis, make the statistical adjustment more or less to get the average sales of the week, and apparently it's 120, okay? That's what is Cortana doing, is detecting those trends. I never detect them visually, or if I would need to make a statistical model actually, in Excel at least, but Cortana didn't. Look at this. You expect to have more or less the same result for every week. This is what we want. When you have these trends, this is when Cortana is going to then help you, because regardless of the inventory that you purchase, in this case, we have enough inventory, by the way, it's not a problem. It's going to start decreasing because we have constant sales. It's going to start decreasing on a constant rate. And in 2 months, we are expecting to be reduced on half of the inventory, more than enough. I don't want to purchase. But if we take a look, and if you haven't purchased enough quantity, Cortana immediately will tell you, hey, let's purchase on the 2nd or the 3rd or for the 4th week, and we are going to go and stock out. So any of these bars that we have here might be really decreased, or could be related, or maybe zero even, telling you for this day, I will have enough inventory. And look at my trend analysis that I did. It's constant. That's what we are looking for, but your inventory is not enough. Okay, basically that's it. So hopefully you get the basic idea how then we actually use it. And then what I'm going to do is open my forecast settings, because for my analysis, for me, I know replenishing. We have implemented, and I have replenishment modules many times. And I know one thing: when you cannot project, just don't do it. So my historical periods will be only from January until today. Okay, I don't want information to be populated from the last year because of coronavirus. Now, my variance is 35%. I know that that will be at least variances. Let's say that you saw that I have ups and downs coming from my sales historical information. But if, let's say, I'm selling 100, that's what we saw. If I, for any reason, start selling 200 in one period, never give me a prediction for that analysis. If I'm talking about 100, and that's a good value, maybe I'm selling between 100 and 135. So the variance is 35%. For me, that's fine. Give me a prediction, because that will be my bandwidth. Because I don't want to purchase too much or too less. Remember that. That's why we use the variance. The historical periods will be for me from January because of coronavirus. My horizon in the future, give me 6 periods in the future to make my analysis. And I'm working currently, the period type is week. Even though for Cortana it's recommended to have 1 month, I really don't need that information, because I will be purchasing on a weekly basis, because apparently I'm selling these items. I prefer to see the weeks instead of months and reacting later. Okay, sometimes I will be sacrificing good costs, because if you purchase on a weekly, on a monthly basis, well, you expect to make a big purchase, right? So, well, basically that's it. Now, here I was speaking about API and API key. meaning that yes, we have access to one URL service, which is Cortana, an API key, because we need like credentials. Let's mention it that that's the way it should be working. We have some credentials in order to have access, and here we provide them in Optimus. Now, the time series model, I mentioned that we have some of them, and we could use all of them at the same time. Okay, so that's because some models are actually just average models, but some of them work with seasonality. Some of them work with not only seasonality, but as well we need to include some peaks and thresholds. ARIMA actually is a very good model that I like. It's like average, more or less, but weighted to only have more weight or importance of the last or the current periods, not the last year, let's say. Okay, so we are going to give more importance to the upcoming to our last periods. In this case, would be May, March, February, with more importance than July last year, of course. And of course, it's going to review. You might have sometimes sales that are, let's say, even random, where you have a peak, right, or valley. That's statistical. Well, we're gonna erase those irregular transactions, even though they are really good, okay, because you sold a lot, but they are just peaks. They aren't a trend. So we just eliminate, and that's what these statistical models do for us. Now, after I have just actually set it up, we just need to click on update forecast if we want a result right now. This actually for me takes just maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, it might require a little bit more, but this is really fast, believe me, really fast. And we as well could schedule it, set to be run on every day or whenever you need it, the starting time, then next run date formula as well. So you could say, okay, or I want to run it every day, so my purchasing see it on a daily basis. But what I would normally do is run it on Fridays to have the information on Monday when we arrive as well. Or you might say, no, I want to run it on the weekends. So on Mondays, you have the updated information. Okay, so we are just scheduling it. Now, for me as well, when I just go and open my Azure AI gallery, that's what I'm going to do now. My model will be there. Okay, this is just an experiment. I have access to what we call Azure AI. So you are seeing it for the first time. And this is what we call the Machine Learning Studio. Okay, let me just open it. Don't worry about, I was saying, getting too technical. Let me just see, it's taking a while. Maybe from here will be faster. Open Azure AI just to go to the model. Very good, it worked. Let me see, it's taking a while. Maybe it's working. Sorry for the delay. Azure sometimes works on my, because I run it before I'm updating, and this is currently calculating for me other items like it did with the item I show you. It was a random item, by the way. So we expect to, if we change configurations or something, to make different to have different outputs. Okay. Just to show you, we have the Microsoft Machine Learning Studio, which is where we have what we call our data sets. Okay, I have here my information, and then, well, just to, these are technical stuff that we don't need to present in the webinar, but What we don't do here is we have a web service input, okay? This is what we do in a graphical way. So we have the web service input, we extract your information, okay? And we have sample data that I will have for my company. And well, we have some granularity, we have some coding behind the scene. We extract and you can export your information. Well, this might be for technical people who wants to learn AI technology, but the idea is that we just get information and we just review the web service parameter to connect to your company, and we call or execute what we call the script. Okay, a script is just basically the time series model that we did. This is coding where we say, okay, we have a model we call ARIMA who will be working when we configure and set up everything. We expect to have a data set that will be analyzed and blah, blah, blah. Everything is just code. Well, we just execute this and then we are going to split the data we are going to have a web service output, one for, let's say, we have two data sets, okay? We are checking your sales and we are checking your inventory. And what we just do is we just, let's run it manually. What is just going to run it and immediately the start and ending time is here and the status code is finished, okay? Once this stuff or this tool, okay, the machine learning model start doing all of these processes, okay, we extract the information, we generate the data, we execute first our scripts, and then we are going to have, guess what, the web service output. This is what gave us the charts that we have here. This is our output. But let's remember that this is going to help us to create invoices or purchase orders. So with this, then the output will be, okay, coming from the analysis, you are going to give the following functions to create the purchase order and insert the quantity and the warehouse from where, and the vendor, of course, from where we are supposed to actually make the purchase. Okay, that will be the output we expect to have coming from the analysis that we have in this experiment. And then, let me just go to the model again. Once we run it, that will be the case, and that's how it works, okay? Don't worry about the technical stuff here. We are just analyzing the information, right? And how this tool actually is working live, okay? Anomaly, oh, look at this. Well, that's for me. I have detected an anomaly in one of my models. I will then later check. Okay, but currently it's working. It worked for my item. It gave me the results. Now, what I will be doing is giving you how then do we deploy it. Let me just run it again. I know my error. Okay, my model needs to be deployed. Just let me finish. And then what we're going to do is give you our API, which is the, let's say the password for this model that we have done currently. And as well, once you have this, and we also require to have your URL. This is all coming from Azure. This is how we actually work with Azure. It gives us access to the current server where I have my OData service, blah, 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 okay? And I have, let's say that I just have a server, I just need to connect to Azure, and this is the way we do it. We are going to give you the keys, we're going to give you the URL, and then we're just going to then input that information in coming back to Business Central to have the API URL and the API key. And once we just get into that, we just configure the model for you so you can see it working for the first time, and then voila, the analysis will be done so you can have those Cortana tools connected to your environment. By the way, we also have some other setups like, models or experiments like forecasting your cash flow, which is really, really good. And predict late payments for your customers, right? You know that you have been selling, but we need to predict whether they're gonna be paying or not based on their historical information, just like we have currently here for inventory, okay, and sales. So that's it for today. That's how we actually work with this and how then it looks and help you to actually work. And if you have any other doubt, please send me an email to my email is noe.wellman@optimus.guru, where you could actually just contact me, and then we are going to be more than happy if you want to use these tools for to have an assistant for your replenishment process. So for now, that is all. Thank you very much for your time, and see you the next time, next webinar, next Thursday. Thank you very much.